One of the most important lessons that I learned in business is when everything is equal, people will do business with people that they like. But it's not just business and sales. People will promote people that they like. People will become friends with people that they like. People will do favors for people that they like. People that are likable get so many benefits and favors that it's unbelievable. And there's been times in my life where I haven't been liked because I didn't know these things and I didn't have these traits. And then there was a huge period of my life where I developed it. And I'm telling you, it's a whole different type of experience when you become a likable and charismatic person versus when you're not. If you watch till the end of this video, I will go over 10 traits that I developed in myself that made me significantly more likable and significantly more charismatic, which not only changed my personal life, but also allowed me to build a business by the time I was 27 that was earning me 7 figures in income, and where I have 500 amazing associates that are working with me in my business, and I'm continuing to grow this into the empire that I'm looking to build it to. In this video, I'm training 300 of my top associates on these top 10 traits of likability and charisma. So that's why I'm looking at the computer screen, not at you. And here's one last thing I want to leave you with. Make sure you watch till the very end, because the last point out of the 10 is not only important in making you more likable and charismatic, but it's also gonna make you a significantly happier person and put you in much more peace and make your life way more fulfilled. So in today's session, I'm gonna talk about the 10 traits that all likable people have. You can call it likability, you can call it charisma, whatever you want to term it, you can. But these are the 10 traits that those individuals have developed that make people attracted to them, that make people want to be around them, that makes it easier for them to have the type of social circle and the type of friends that they want to have. So that way, they're not choosing from what they need to settle for, but they're choosing from what they actually want. Is that clear? And these traits that I'm going to go over with you, I had to develop many of them. No one really teaches us this stuff. The reason it's so important to read books like How to Win Friends and Influence People, because as much as making friends should be natural to us, many times it's not. Many times the little skills or even the big skills that we need to develop to attract people to us is not taught to us in the school system. It's not taught to us by our parents because no one ever taught them. So that's why it's so important that we talk about this topic. And I highly recommend that for those of you that haven't already read the book, read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. A lot of the things that I'm going to talk about is from that book. And it's an amazing, amazing foundation to developing better people skills, to attracting more people to you, and like we mentioned earlier, to having the circle that you want around you, not ones that you just have to settle for because it's the people that are willing to tolerate you, let's say. So this is the first trait that likable people don't actually do. They don't criticize, they don't condemn, and they don't complain. No one likes to be around negative energy. No one likes to be around people that complain about everything all the time. There's enough negativity in the world. People want to be around you because of the positivity you can bring into their life. So the first lesson here is don't complain. And the second one is don't criticize and condemn people. Look, we're in a business where we want to lead others, we want to motivate others, we want to mentor others. And a lot of the times we take the road that's the easiest, which is criticism. But there's a difference between criticism and feedback. The difference is what happens by the end of it. See, you can let someone know that you're unhappy with something that they're doing, or you can let someone know that they need to work in a certain area. But if you don't follow along with a solution for them to take action on, you just come off as a hater. See, most people criticize and leave you in that criticism. They'll come to you and they'll say, I don't like the way you do X, Y, Z, and then they walk away. Or they come to you and say, I don't like what you're wearing, and they walk away. Yes or no? So they leave you in the criticism. But likable people, charismatic people, people who attract people to them, learn to give feedback, not criticism. And the way you do it is you give them a solution at the end. So you could go to someone and say, hey, listen, I don't like the way you do that, but here's what I recommend you do that could actually help you with this. Hey, I don't like that you wear that type of outfit in the office, but here's what I would wear instead that would make you look just as good, but also more professional. Do you see the difference? So the difference is, in one end, you just criticize and leave it there. In the other end, you criticize and follow it up with the solution so they have that to take with them. Here's another caveat you can add to this. And by the way, this was an area that I myself needed to work on quite a bit because I was in an environment where I got criticized in a very straightforward manner. So I thought it's normal to do that. So I will go and criticize other people like that. But what I've learned to do over time is to give feedback. And sometimes you do it by starting off with a compliment too. Let's say you want to criticize someone in the way that they dress at the office. Let's say they're not dressed professionally when they come to the office and you want to criticize them for it. Here's how I would do it. Let me tell you actually how you shouldn't do it, and then I'll tell you how I would do it. Here's how you shouldn't do it. I hate what you're wearing. It's so unprofessional. don't come here wearing that again. That's how you shouldn't do it. Here's how you should do it. Hey, John, I love what you're wearing. I can see that this is a style that's authentic to you. But can I just give you some feedback? In this office environment, it's a lot more effective if you're dressed in professional attire. What I recommend you wear next time you come is a button-up shirt, maybe a suit jacket if you have one, so you can have that professional look that you want to have when you come to the office. You look great right now. Trust me, if we were out in a different environment, you'd probably be the best looking person here. But in this particular environment, what is most respected and what is most recommended is professional business attire. See, you just gave them the same message, but now you gave them feedback with the solution attached to it rather than criticism that's gonna make them feel bad, and that's about it. Here's the second thing that likable people have developed as a trait within themselves. They give honest and sincere appreciation. How often have we come across someone who's wearing a nice shirt and we walked away without saying anything? How often have you seen someone who has a nice smile and you walked away without saying anything? How often have we been in a circumstance where somebody did something very kind to us and we just said thank you and left it at that? And thank you is a great thing to say. But what if we could have added something that would have made their day even better? There is so many times in our life we come across opportunities to appreciate people, to compliment them, but we don't. Why? Because maybe we have our own insecurities. Because maybe we think they're gonna think that we're weird if we compliment them. Because we think that maybe it's gonna come off in a way that it shouldn't. Maybe because we think, oh, if we say something nice to them, it's gonna make them big-headed and cocky and they're gonna think they're better than us. Whatever it is, it's usually rooted in insecurity or fear. Maybe it's shyness. Maybe it's not wanting to speak out. Maybe because you think you're gonna be judged in another way. But usually we don't voice our appreciation and recognition for others, either because we're insecure or we have a fear like shyness or something else. Here's the thing that I trained myself to do as soon as I finished reading the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I trained myself to look for the things in people that I like and compliment them. I had to train myself to do it. It didn't come naturally to me. But I started to make a point. I said, every time I see someone, I'm gonna make sure I give them a compliment, a sincere compliment in something that I truly appreciate about them. And here's what I noticed. I can find something in anyone and everyone to compliment. Some of you are like, Nima, really? You can compliment anyone and everyone? Yeah, let me give you an example of somebody who's very low in society, a homeless person. A homeless person seems like someone that's very difficult to compliment. Would you agree? But here's what I can say to a homeless person. I can say, hey, you know what? I really appreciate how resilient you are and how determined you are, because most people couldn't go through all the adversity you probably go through all day just to survive. Isn't that a genuine compliment that I can give to a homeless person? So you see, if I can find something in a homeless person to compliment, then we can find something in anyone and everyone to compliment. So if there's one thing you take away from this session, take this. Learn to recognize the great qualities that people have. And that's one of the fastest ways to become likable, because everyone loves a genuine compliment that is authentic to them. And so few people are willing to give it. And so few people are willing to recognize it. So here's the biggest takeaway that I think you should take away from this point. Over the next week, over the next 2 weeks, make a point of complimenting every person you interact with. By the way, this is also how I got really good at networking. This is also how I got really good at meeting new people. How I got really good at finding new people that I could talk to about my business and about the financial solutions we have to offer. Is I would find something to compliment in them and it would immediately put me into conversation. Anytime I was in a setting where I wanted to talk to someone and didn't know what to say, I would always start the conversation with a compliment. Hey, nice shoes. You seem like a very sharp person. Can I ask, where did you get that from? Easy conversation starter. Hey, I love what you're wearing. You seem like a very creative and artistic person. What made you want to put that outfit together? Because I really like it. Easy way to start a conversation. So if you're ever stuck on what should I say to someone to start a conversation, here's a quick tip. Say a compliment that you actually mean. Let's go to the third trait that all likable people have. They smile often. And by the way, I get it. I'm like you too. Sometimes I'm in a setting and I'm very focused, I'm very intense, I'm very determined, and the last thing I'm thinking about is smiling. But this is another thing that I had to consciously train myself to do more often, is smile. When you smile, it makes people more comfortable. It makes you more approachable. It lightens people's mood up. Smiling is very similar to yawning. When you do it, other people consciously start doing it around you. When you smile more, people get attracted to you more. You become more approachable and people feel more comfortable in your surroundings, especially nowadays after the COVID era, where a lot of people have become a little bit maybe antisocial. A lot of people have developed maybe social anxiety. When you're someone who smiles often, it makes them feel comfortable around you. Here's the fourth thing. Become genuinely interested in other people. Nothing makes you likable like actually being interested in others. You know, in the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, he says this. He said, everyone is more interested in themselves than they are in others. And everyone likes to hear themselves talk more than they like anyone else talk. And he shares this story about how he was in this conversation with this individual, and the person just talked about themselves the whole time. For 45 minutes that they were conversing, 40 minutes of it, the person was just talking about themselves. And they walked away from the conversation, and the day after, the guy said, you know, I had a really interesting conversation with you. You're such an intriguing person. And Dale Carnegie was thinking, dude, I didn't even say a word. But that's the lesson here. People find themselves the most interesting. So get in the habit of letting people talk about themselves. Get in the habit of giving people room to share with you where they're coming from, to share with you their perspectives. You become immediately the most interesting person. And by the way, all the pressure comes off of you. When you're trying to be interesting, it's very difficult because you don't know what they're going to find interesting. But when you just let them talk, you immediately become the most interesting person in the room, makes your life a lot easier, and people end up loving you. And that's one of the things that I learned to do very easily because I'm a pretty introverted person. So I learned, hey, if I just ask good questions and just take a genuine interest in their response and get curious about them, I can be in a conversation with someone for an hour and I don't have to do any work. I just have to sit there, nod, listen, give them some feedback here and there, and they'll walk away loving the conversation and I'll walk away loving the time that I spent because I just learned a lot about someone else and I didn't have to do much work and I didn't have to impress them. And here's another thing to remember when it comes to this. You learn when you listen, you repeat when you talk. Everything you already know will come out of your mouth when you're talking. But most of the things you listen might end up being new things or might be the same things put into a different way. So I thought, hey, why don't I just put myself in a position where I learn more rather than teach more? So whenever I got into conversations, I learned to ask good questions so I can learn about them. So I can learn about their wisdom, learn about their experience. And I walked away from every conversation feeling like I took something away from it. So become genuinely interested in other people. And I promise you, people become interested in you very quickly. And here's the thing with this. You can't really fake it. You have to develop a genuine curiosity in getting to know people and their story. And you can do that if you go into it with the mentality of learning, not the mentality of teaching. Okay, here's the next one. Remember that a person's name is to the person the sweetest sound. One of the things that likable people, charismatic people do very well is they remember names. And not only do they remember names, but they use people's names. So Colton, do you like the way your name sounds? I just got Colton's attention by just saying his name, and he's now way more intrigued in the conversation. If I said, hey guy, sitting with the black shirt, sitting next to the other guy with the black shirt, do you think Colton would give me the same level of attention? He might have an idea, hey, it might be me he's talking about. But one, he wouldn't give it the same level of attention. And two, he probably wouldn't feel so good about it. Like, what? Don't you know my name? Why are you describing me? But when I say, hey, Colton immediately feels like he's cared about. He immediately feels like he's recognized. And he's immediately more engaged in the conversation. So if you ever want to get someone's attention, use their name. If you feel that someone is distracted in a presentation you're doing for them, use their name. Like, hey, John, what do you think about this bit of information I just shared with you? I promise you they will immediately become attentive and they will immediately get engaged in the conversation. So remember people's names and use their name more often in the conversation. That's the fifth trait of likable people. Here's the sixth one. Be a good listener. Very similar to the fourth trait of being interested in others, but this is about the skill of listening. Be a good listener and encourage others to talk about themselves. If you go into and you look at the statistics, guess what people search most often when it comes to communication? How do I do public speaking? How do I become better at speaking? How do I become better at talking? How do I become... But no one freaking searches how to become a better listener. And listening is the most important skill in conversing with others. Because before you can be understood, you have to understand. How can you understand if you don't know how to listen? I actually did a whole training. I believe the video is on YouTube, where I talk about the skills that a great listener has developed. And you know how I learned those skills? By being a bad listener to begin with. I'm a very A-type personality, very high urgent, high even anxious type of person in many scenarios. So I want to just get to what I want to say right away and I want to make my point. So I had to train myself to listen better. I had to train myself to not interrupt others. I had to train myself to genuinely go, you know what? I know you have a good idea of what they're gonna say, but let them tell you because it's gonna give them the room to listen to you later as well. I had to train myself in those ways to learn to be a better listener. And you're gonna always learn more learning from someone who was bad at something and then became great at it than someone who was talented in something and just was born that way. So if you wanna be a great listener, I recommend you watch my YouTube video on how to be a better listener because I break down the things that I had to learn the hard way from making mistakes so you don't have to. Here's number 7. The only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it. How many times have you genuinely argued with someone who was very strong in their belief and you walked away winning that argument? Whether it was about sports, whether it was about politics, whether it was about religion, whatever it was about. And you actually walked away from that argument knowing for a fact you convinced the person they were wrong and you were right. That almost never happens. None of us, at least if we're honest, can honestly say we've argued with someone and managed to convince them that our belief system was the correct one and theirs was the wrong one and walked away from the conversation in that way. Maybe it's happened a few times with very open-minded people, with people that are willing to learn and willing to change, but it rarely ever happens. When it comes to arguing, it's a waste of time because you're not, even if you're the greatest debater, even if you're the greatest influencer, you're rarely gonna change that person's belief system. But here's the other lesson when it comes to this. Not only is it almost impossible to change the way that person thinks by arguing with them, but even if you do, they're gonna still hate you and resent you. Again, unless they're very open-minded, unless they're really very much open to change, unless they're coming to the conversation with the possibility of, I might be wrong about this and I'm okay with it, even if you convince them that they're wrong, they're gonna resent you, they're gonna feel some sort of way about you, and that feeling is gonna dictate your relationship with them going forward. If you wanna give someone your 2 cents, if you wanna give someone your perspective, tell them that. Be like, hey, let me just share with you my perspective and my opinion. It's okay if you disagree with it, but I'll share with you mine. You can share with me yours. If one of us walks away believing that another perspective is more beneficial to us, we can change that. If not, then we can walk away having our own opinions, and I'm completely comfortable with that. And then you can share with them how you think and your opinion, and they can share with you, and then you guys can take it wherever you go. But don't get into arguments. And if you notice you're in an argument, end it as soon as possible. Here's number 8. If you are wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically. Everyone is gonna make mistakes. That's a given. Everyone's gonna fail. That's a given. Everyone's gonna have errors in judgment. That's a given. Here's the question. What do you do with it? Most people make an excuse for it, look for an alibi, and stay the same way. The greats, the ones that end up winning, the ones that end up developing are the ones that go, you know what? I messed up here. That's okay. I'm human. Everyone messes up. They forgive themselves. They learn the lesson, and then they let go of the experience and move on to the next one, making sure they don't repeat the same thing over and over again. That's it. The people that end up winning, guys, the people that end up having the most success are not the ones that fail the least, are not the ones that make the least mistake. It's actually the opposite. The people that win the most and that have the most success fail the most, make the most mistakes because they're taking the most chances, but they learn lessons from it so they don't repeat that mistake again. And one of the greatest things you can learn to do when it comes to developing better relationships is to apologize. And apologize quicker, apologize with more empathy, and apologize with more humbleness. And that will get you ahead so far, I can't even tell you. Here's number 9. Let the other person feel that the idea is theirs. Wow. This is a huge lesson when it comes to influence. If you want to get better at influencing people, you want to get better at leading people, let them feel like they come up with the good ideas. Because let me tell you something, people listen to themselves way more often than they listen to other people. Would you agree? So if you can let someone believe that they came up with an idea, they're more likely to actually act on it. Because they feel like they're invested in that idea because it's theirs. They feel emotionally attached to that idea because it's theirs. Now you might be wondering, well, Nima, how do I do that? Ask them questions that lead to the answer. Don't just give them the answer. I'm gonna say it one more time. If you wanna let other people feel that the idea is theirs, ask them questions that lead them to the answers. Don't just give them the answers. Tony Robbins talks about this all the time. He says that when he was younger, he would force ideas down people's throat. He's like, I would just force them to do what I wanted them to do because I knew it was good for them. But he goes, as he got older, as he gained more experience, He learned to lead people to the answers because by asking them great questions that they could come up with the answers themselves, they would actually take action on the answer. Whereas when he forced the answer down their throat, or when he forced them to do something about it, they might do it for a little bit and then stop doing it later. But by learning to ask them great questions where they could give him the answer themselves, they actually internalize that answer and were more likely to take action on it for a longer period of time and benefit from the results. And when you watch Tony Robbins do interventions, that's what you see him do the whole time. He asks great questions that lead them to the answer. And it might take 10 minutes, it might take 2 hours. But he'll be patient through that process until the person gets it. By the way, this is something you can do in a sales situation. When you're talking to your clients, ask them good questions that lead them to the answers you want to give them, and they'll be more likely to actually take those answers than if you just gave it to them yourself. But why do people not do this? Because they rather feel good than make other people feel good. But if you make other people feel good, they'll be attracted to you way more than if you just make yourself feel good. So I know it feels good to seem smart. I know it makes your ego feel better when you come up with something and other people know about it. Look, I'm someone who loves recognition. So I get this. But I've had to train myself to learn to give that recognition to others, not just take it for myself, because that's how I'm going to build others. Let's go to the 10th one. Try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view. Again, I'm telling you all this right now. Many of the things that I'm going over with you today in these 10 traits, I had to develop them. So I know this number, 10-1, is probably the hardest one for most people, to see things from other people's point of view. And you know what that means? Here's what it means to see things from other people's point of view. It means to totally assume you're wrong. In order to see something from someone else's point of view, you have to assume that you're wrong 100%. You have to assume that in this circumstance, I'm the one in the wrong. I'm the one that made the mistake. I'm the one to blame. You got to go from it from that point of view if you want to see it from their point of view. Because guess what? That's probably what they're thinking. And if you can't put yourself in their shoes, you're not going to be able to see it from their point of view. So as much as you think you're right, as much as you think you have a point, as much as you think you know for a fact that they're wrong, you need to suspend that belief and assume you're wrong, assume that you're in the error here, and go, how could this person view it? How could a person who's stressed in this way, how could a person who's dealing with this thing, how could a person who's going through this type of thinking be feeling in this moment? And how could that feeling make them think? And how could those thoughts lead them to those words that they said to me? How could those thoughts lead them to taking that action that they end up taking? Those are the questions you need to ask. You need to go, and here's another thing that I learned to do, guys. By the way, this thing that I learned to do, that I'm going to tell you right now, changed my business forever, changed my relationships forever. I learned to say to myself, why would an amazing person with great intentions, who means well, do this, say this? The reason I was able to give that energy to almost everyone was by changing my questions from why would they do this to me, how dare they, to this. Why would an amazing person with great intentions, who means well, say this or do this? And as soon as I put myself in that perspective, I was able to see them for all the good that they have. I was able to see them for the great person that they are, not the bad person that they're acting like in that moment. And that's what allowed me to go into that conversation with a different energy, with a different type of mindset, and with a different willingness to actually see how I could be wrong in this situation. One of the hardest things I had to learn to do, by the way. One of the hardest things I had to learn to do. Because all of us, when we get into a negative state, when we get into a negative mindset, we think that we're the victim and everyone else is the enemy. I had to train my mind to go, why would an amazing person with great intentions, who means well, say this or do this? And that allowed me to sit back and truly put myself in their shoes. Because guess what? Everyone believes they're the good guy. Everyone believes. Even the craziest people in the world, even the most horrible person you can imagine in history, thought they were a good person. The most horrible person you can imagine in history. The serial killers that are in prison feel fully justified for killing all those innocent people. Every human being from their point of view believes they're the good person, and it's someone else's fault. I'm telling you right now. So if you want to put yourself in someone else's shoes, You have to learn to believe that they're a good person before you can do that. You have to literally go, why would an amazing person with great intentions, who means well, do this or say this? And from that place, you can now see the world from their point of view. And guess what? As soon as you can, empathy is easy. As soon as you can, relatability is easy. As soon as you can, understanding them so that maybe they're willing to understand you becomes easy. And I'm telling you right now, there's not a single person on this planet that I hate. There's not a single person on this planet that when I think about them, I have negativity go through me. If you can think of someone's name or think of someone's face or think of someone's anything and feel negative, it's your fault, not theirs. No matter how bad of a person they are, by the way. You know why? Because the bad thing they did to you probably happened a long time ago. And the bad person they are is probably not in your presence in that moment. So why would you allow them to have negative influence over your internal state? Actually think about it. Yes, we've all encountered bad people who've done bad things to us. But if that bad person is no longer here, why should they still have power over you by changing your feelings just by the thought of them? It's because you haven't forgiven them yet. And it's because you haven't learned to see things from their point of view yet. Seriously. So when you do this exercise, you know what it allows you to do more than anything else? It allows you to forgive that person. And forgiveness is freedom for you, not for them. Because if they're actually a bad person, they're going to create that negative charge in other people as well. So that negativity will always be in their life, whether they like it or not, because they're a bad person and they're giving negativity to others, so they're going to get it back. But you are choosing to live with that negativity that they charge you with because you haven't forgiven them yet. And if you learn to forgive, just like I had to learn to forgive, which is very hard to do, especially if bad things have happened to you, you become free of the pain they inflicted on you. You become free of the power and control that they have over you. You want to get over an ex quickly, forgive them fast. Take full responsibility for the relationship. Forgive them for all the bad things they did to you, even if they cheated on you. Forgive them. And as soon as you forgive them, now you have power to move on from them. But until you resent them, until you hate them, until you hold something against them, they also hold something over you, power. Because they can make you feel bad with a snap. And we all have people in our lives who if they just call us, we get pissed off. If we just see their name pop up, we get pissed off. Unless we forgive them. So this last lesson, it's not even about likability. It's not even about attracting people to you. It's about having peace in your life. And in order to have peace, you need to forgive people. By the way, you know who's the most important person that we all need to forgive that we probably haven't? Ourselves. The hardest person for me to forgive was me. If you actually want to know the truth. Because when I look back on my life, even at the young age that I have, I made a lot of mistakes, just like I'm sure you guys have, and I felt bad about it. I felt like I let myself down a lot of times, and I felt bad about it. And the hardest person I had to learn to forgive was myself. As soon as I learned to forgive me, forgiving other people became a piece of cake. This is not a philosophical conversation. I'm not trying to be spiritual here. I'm just giving you some insight that changed my life. When I learned to forgive myself, forgiving other people became a piece of cake. So if you took nothing else away from this call, take this, forgiveness. It's the greatest gift you can give to yourself. Now here's a very important thing. I want you to watch the video that I talked about in today's training on how to become a much, much better listener. Because like we talked about today, one of the most important skills to become more likable and more charismatic is to become a better listener. And it's a skill we all need to develop. So make sure you click right here to watch that video and make sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell so you get notified every time I have a new video.